In today's show, Rafael Barlowe of Locked On NBA Big Board joins the program to talk about who the Blazers could target at 7. AJ Griffin, Bennedict Mathurin, Dyson Daniels, Keegan Murray, what have you. Plus, he names some second-round targets to mention and tells a story about Rasheed Wallace. You're going to want to hear it. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Blazers your first listen every single day, 5 days a week, every single weekday. Make it a part of your daily routine and make it your first listen every day. And why don't you make your second listen Locked On NBA Big Board, where you will hear my guest, the director of scouting at NBA Big Board and the founder of NBA Draft Junkies, a returning guest of the show, Rafael Barlowe. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. It's always good to talk Blazers. You know, this is my team, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's Rafael's a longtime childhood Blazers fan, but now has to do the work of being a professional basketball scout and can't do as much rooting maybe as he wants to. And so this gives you a chance to kind of think about your old favorite team. It is like workout season. No one's ever had a bad workout in public. It's literally never happened. Some people have bad workouts in private, but no one has a bad workout in public. Since we last spoke, with the lottery happened, the combine happened, who you gave me some names then, and I'm wondering if any of names have changed. The Blazers have the number 7 overall pick in the NBA draft. Who do you like at 7 if they are to keep that pick?
There's quite a few names that I think could help. I think you can go with AJ Griffin if the medicals check out. I think that he would provide shooting, shot 44% from 3. Bennedict Mathurin, a guy that shot 38% from 3 for his career over 2 seasons. He is someone that projects to be a 3-and-D floor spacer that has some upside as a passer and ball handler. I think that he would be a good fit. Maybe even Johnny Davis may not be the most seamless fit because he shot 30% from 3. So, with Dame, you kind of need floor spacers around him. Right. But he is a highly competitive score average, like a little under 20 points a game, 8 rebounds per game at the wing position. And so I think that could be an option. Keegan Murray, who could be an option there. I mean, you can make a case and say he was the best player in college basketball. I mean, he put up great numbers, maybe not the sexiest pick because he doesn't have like this crazy athleticism and he's a little older for his class. So people may think that the potential isn't there, but even though he's not like this freakish athlete, we're talking about a guy that the majority of his points were in transition, which is right. is kind of interesting. And usually when you think of a guy that does most of his damage in transition, you think of like some high flyer, some, just some long Darius Miles type player. But Keegan Murray, scored a lot in transition. So, I mean, I think those guys could possibly be like the best options there for Portland.
What concerns you about AJ Griffin? You mentioned his medicals. I feel like he's a name that people have kind of soured on. Like it was hot early. He was shooting 47% from 3 during ACC play. And now, into the tournament. And now I feel like his name has people who are a little down on him. What concerns you and why do you think he is a good fit at 7?
Yeah, it's just for him, his range is all going to depend on his medicals. I mean, he's had some lower leg injuries. Maybe 2 or 3. I know. I forgot exactly what it was this season.
He had a knee coming out of high school. I know he had a knee issue early on in his college career.
Yeah, and then this year he got hurt in like preseason camp. I forgot what it was exactly. It wasn't major. I mean, it was something that kept him out. Maybe a few months and before the season started. And then, Duke brought him along slowly and they didn't have him in the starting lineup. But I think it's just a combination of multiple lower leg injuries that has people concerned. So if the medicals check out, then I think he should be fine. But if there's some red flags or concerns there, then I think he could be the one that we see fall the furthest in the draft.
Is Ben Mathurin the best 3-and-D prospect in this draft?
No. Well, on one hand, yes and no. But here's some things that are concerning about Ben Mathurin. So a scout told me that he likes him in an up and down system where he gets up and down the floor, but he said he struggles in the half court. So I did a little deeper dive, and this year alone in the half court, just the half court, so excluding all jump shots that he made in like transition or whatever, he only shot 33% on jumpers overall, 32.7% on catch and shoot situations.
Wow.
And he only made 26% of his unguarded catch and shoot jumpers in the half court. So for a guy that is considered a 3-and-D guy that's supposed to be a floor spacer, those numbers are a little bit concerning, even though overall he shot like 36% from three. But if you take a deeper dive into the numbers in just the half court, and the Blazers are a team that's their goal is to make the playoffs. And if he's on the team next year, it's going to be a lot of half court basketball in the playoffs. The numbers are a little bit concerning.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
again,
Dame's teams haven't run very much. Like they want to play faster with Chauncey Billups, but just with Dame on the floor, they haven't run very much. It's fine. He's one of the best half court players in the league. Like he's really good. But they're going to play maybe, middle of the pack pace. And if you don't have a guy who's going to excel there, I think that is an interesting concern.
Yeah.
Portland today, they worked out Dyson Daniels. What do you think about him? Because I've seen him as high as 5 in some mocks, but as low as like 14. Where are you at with him?
I think on my mock, I had him going to Washington at 11, but he is like the biggest riser since the end of the season. And I had just did a Twitter Spaces, and that was one of the questions, like, why is this stock increasing so much? And I mean, that was a question I really couldn't answer. I mean, like as soon as the season ended, and maybe like within the last week or so, you just keep seeing his stock go up. He shot it well at his pro day, and I think he measured well. And, at the minimum, I think teams see a guy that can defend multiple positions, can be a secondary ball handler. So, I mean, you look at, playing next to Dame, he can move Dame a little bit off the ball and handle the ball, but also defend, threes, which, as a Blazers fan, I mean, I think that's something that the Blazers have lacked. The last few years, it was either CJ, Dame, and then maybe this year Simons. Other than that, nobody else could handle the ball or do anything. So I think that
Norm could handle, but he was just going to the rack anyways.
Yeah. So, but yes, I mean, I think that could be a very interesting situation for Blazers. I think they're just doing their due diligence,
right?
But the shooting for him, like if he shoots the ball well in workouts, then I could see him just even climbing even higher.
Sure. You were at his pro day, right? At the combine.
Yep.
How does that factor into all of it? You've got tape, you've got, what you hear from scouts, and then you've got him working out. I believe he did a one-on none, just like by himself pro day. How does that sort of factor into your evaluation process? And what did you see from him there?
So, there's a human element of it, last impression.
Sure.
And so he did shoot the ball very well. He's one of the few that did an actual solo workout, which is weird to me because he signed with an agency that had multiple guys, but for whatever reasons, he did his on his own. And there are people saying, well, it was an empty gym. There was no defense, but I think there's some pressure to it. I mean, it's kind of like, whatever job you do, you're there by yourself and there's 100 people watching you perform. Whether it's typing a letter, there's a little bit of pressure to it. So but again, he shot the ball well, he measured well, and then just briefly talking to him, he is going to wow and impress teams in his one-on-one sit-down interviews. Very respectful, very mannerable. Not saying other guys aren't, but there's just this it factor that he has where you leave the interview feeling like this is a great kid.
Yeah, you say, and wow, that dude's 19. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it just has a level of it's a level of confidence, it's a level of maturity, but it's also just you feel comfortable, especially if you're like a small market team where it's not, I mean, I'm thinking of it from like a Blazers perspective. Small market.
That's why you're
team,
here. We know you would.
And a guy that is going to be great in the community, a guy that is going to just always represent the franchise well. And I think that is also helping him in some of his interviews also.
You mentioned Daniels as one of the biggest risers of this sort of post-lottery combine period. I want to ask you about some other guys who have helped their stock during this strange stretch where no one's actually playing basketball, but a lot of people are shooting basketballs in gyms, lighting up the chair. But first, I want to tell my listeners about Built Bar, and y'all, there's new products from Built Bar. It's Built granola bars. They're here. They're coming in 3 unbelievable flavors: chocolate peanut butter, chocolate coconut, and white chocolate berry. You want to try all 3 flavors? You can. You can get a mix box at built.com right now. Listen, 150 calories, 15 grams of protein, only 4 grams of sugar. Built granola bars will change your world. They've cracked the code to make better granola. They're the perfect snack in your lunch or to take on the road or just to eat when you need one. And they're made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. So if you've been waiting for a healthy and delicious granola bar to hit that market, well, guess what? Head to built.com right now. Get 3 granola bars. All 3 flavors of those granola bars, rather. Don't miss out. Go get yours and save some money when you use that promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order. That's 15% off when you use the promo code LOCKED15 at built.com. All right. Still chatting here with Rafael Barlowe, the director of scouting at NBA Big Board and the host of Locked On NBA Big Board right here on this network. Also the founder of NBA Draft Junkies. So you mentioned Dyson Daniels, guy who's really improved his stock. Who else, from what you've been hearing, what you've been seeing, has helped themselves during this sort of NBA combine lead up to the draft, six or so weeks?
Man, I'd say Jalen Williams would probably be second on my list, and he actually played at the combine, so he did his himself some favors, and he improved his stock by actually playing. A lot of guys chose not to play at the combine for whatever reasons. Williams played both games. He was efficient. He measured well. I think he measured at like 6'6", but with a 7'2" wingspan, a 39-inch vertical. And he's someone that Blazers fans may be familiar with because he played out in the West Coast Conference. So there may be some familiarity.
He came to UP once this year. If you're up in North Portland, you could have seen him. He's Jalen Williams of Santa Clara, right?
Yep. Jalen Williams of Santa Clara. There's 2. So many Jalens. I feel like the next 10 drafts, I'm gonna have to be prepared for a Jaden or Jalen being in
sometimes
the
in the same family when they're the McDaniels kids.
Yeah. It's. I mean, there's 2 Jalen Williams. Then you got Jaden Ivey, and I keep getting them mixed up. Anyway, Jalen Williams from Santa Clara. I think he really helped himself. Shot the ball well. I think if I'm not mistaken, he made 12 out of his 16 shots in the 2 combine games. And so he's someone that may have been, late first round, early second round prior to the combine. I think he's put himself in position to be selected in the teams.
Nice. That's if the Blazers are a trade back candidate, that's maybe someone they could hit. Although, do they need to add more guards?
I would love him in Portland because he has the size
with that length.
Something that I feel like Portland has lacked is like a big wing creator, and he's a good passer. I mean, he's a good pick and roll passer, and I think with his length and his outside shooting, I think that he would be someone that I also feel like is kind of plug and play and ready to go because he's a little bit older. Yeah. And so, I mean, he's someone that I really would like to see in Portland. I don't know if I would take him at number 7, but if there is some type of trade, and if I'm looking for a veteran, but I got to move back and a rookie that I think can come in and contribute right away to winning, I think he's one of those guys.
Cool. So if the Blazers, if you're listening, San Antonio Spurs, and you want to move up to 7, you want to swap 9 and 20 to do so, Portland, go ahead and get Jalen Williams at 20. That's there's my pitch. There's my super specific pitch.
That was a good one.
Yeah, there you go. I've been thinking a lot about it. I basically just make fake trades up on this podcast. It's mostly this time of year because it sounds like the Blazers aren't going to use their pick at 7. I'm just making up fake trades. Who has hurt themselves? We talked to AJ Griffin. Has anyone else hurt themselves this time of year? Like, I was joking that nobody has bad workouts, but have you heard anyone kind of whispers is kind of slipping down draft boards?
I have. I mean, I think the guy that probably hurt himself the most is Patrick Baldwin Jr. I think he really, really needed a great combine to offset his awful freshman year. And he didn't participate in any of the scrimmages. He didn't measure well. He had like a 23-inch vertical. So, it figures like if you're not going to be considered athletic and mobile, then you have to shoot the lights out. And he didn't really shoot the lights out. And I mean, he's a guy that some people still think he's going to get drafted. And if he does get drafted, it is clearly based off of his pre-college hype and based off of, like the reputation that he built in high school. But I mean, you look at like, and this is, it's a Blazers podcast. So you look at Dame and you look at CJ, two guys that went to mid-majors and they dominated their conferences, right? And we're talking about a guy that people still think could be a first-round pick that did not dominate a mid-major conference. And, it's if he gets drafted, period, it is clearly based off of his high school resume. So I don't think he helped himself there. Let's see. There's a couple guys. I'm trying to think without.
Yeah, I don't want you to burn people on here. That's not what you're here. That's not what you're here to do. You're here to give us a little insight. You don't need to. Everyone's trying to get a job. No one needs to get lit on fire here on Locked On Blazers.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm trying to think. There's some other guys that. Well, I'll say it like this. I think there are guys that did not help themselves because they chose not to participate in the scrimmages. For example, a guy like J.D. Davison, who I don't think is a lock to go in the first round. And in my opinion, if you're not a lock to go in the first round, then you need to play in those scrimmages and try to help your draft stock. But he was one of many guys that opted not to play, and they just chose to do a pro day, which the pro days are very, very scripted because, the teams have no control. So he's someone that I thought could have helped himself by playing.
One of the issues for me this time of year is just like echo chamber groupthink of draft stuff. Like I'm an NBA guy. I don't watch a ton of college basketball. So I kind of like get into it in April. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn.
Hopefully you won't get into it next April.
Exactly. I am excited to ignore this stuff, man. Like I'm not, no bones, dude. I'm excited just to be like, I don't know about the draft. Who cares? I'll watch a million NBA games and that's how I'll learn about these dudes. But so like, I kind of tap in April and try to learn about it. And then by June, I make opinions, but so much of mine is just group think. When you are building a big board, how do you kind of avoid the echo chamber? Because I mean, you do this, you've literally run a big board website.
Yeah. Before I get into that, as a Blazers fan, I do not want any Blazers media to be thinking about the draft until June. Because if you're not thinking about the draft until June, that means the team is still playing.
There you go.
If you're doing podcasts on the Blazers draft in mid-April, means the team is in the lottery.
Exactly.
It's kind of tough. I mean, on one hand, I form my own opinions. And one thing I will say that I'll do is I'll watch a prospect, I'll watch his film, I'll take my notes and, like I may cross stuff out. Like, let's say at the beginning of the film, I'm like, well, this guy's an athletic. And then maybe a few plays later, he flies in the air, makes a dunk, and I cross it out. Yeah. Okay, he is, a little bit more athletic than I thought. So I do that. And then I'll form my opinion. And then every once in a while, I'll go to another site and I'll see if they're seeing the same things. Sometimes I'm like, we totally disagree on this prospect. Then as far as like putting together my big board, I still like to use my own opinion. But one of the things that I've had to do since taking over for Chad is use more intel, because that was Chad's thing. He used a lot of intel and sources. And so before I met Chad, I didn't have intel. I didn't have sources. I only knew what I knew and what I saw, which I think is what most people in draft Twitter is what they're using. So I'm trying to do a little combination of my own thoughts, my own perspective, but at the same time, use some of the resources that have been presented to me through my connections with Chad and kind of get a feedback. And a lot of times it just shows like the power of social media. Social media can be really, really high on someone. And the scouts or the people that are in NBA personnel is totally different, which is why, like you may see on draft day, you're like, wow, I had no idea that guy was going to go this high. Like, for example, Patrick Williams a couple years ago.
Right.
Super
Josh
high.
Primo is the one that comes up for me.
Josh Giddey. Well, I mean, it only takes one team. So, I mean, there are situations where the consensus could feel one way and it just takes one team to really like a guy. So I try to somehow balance both. And then, but I do check out other other platforms. I mean, I'm not going to be one of these guys. I don't check out anybody's
I
stuff.
don't read them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just my own. I think when people say that they're lying, but I mean, there may be some cases, but I think it's kind of natural to want to check out, I guess, for lack of a better term, your competitors or see
Right.
how other people feel.
Is there a case, you don't have to like name names because again, I don't want you to burn people, but where you've been kind of high on someone and you've called a team and they're like, oh no, we gave him a second round grade, he sucks type of thing. Like, are there that big enough surprises between sort of your, hey, I've seen this guy's film, I've watched whatever, all 20 of his games. And then you hear from, teams that are saying, oh, we're not reading the same thing.
Yeah, there's a guy. So I was really, really high on him. And then like when I got to the combine, I started seeing like, okay, it's not necessarily his talent, but if I am a general manager or decision maker, how does this guy fit into my system? How would he act when he has millions of dollars in his bank account?
Sure.
Who is coming with him when he moves to the city? So as a Blazers fan, you can remember back in the 90s, and that was, I don't want to go into the nickname, but, so that's one of the things that has kind of changed. And I mean, this kid could end up like really panning out as a player, but those are some of the concerns where you say, all right, no wonder teams aren't as high on him as I am, because they have some intel or they have some background
right
that we don't necessarily have when you're just watching film. So I guess that's probably the best example.
Yeah, where it's like there's some some of this stuff is just like team chemistry is a hard thing to balance. And so the intel that teams have is somehow building a group of gentlemen that work together. Earlier or last week rather, I had Antonio Daniels on the podcast, and I was trying to ask him about the 2002-2003 Blazers. So that's like rookie Zebo and the last year of Pippen and the last year of Rasheed before the last full season of Rasheed and Sabas and all of that sort of that young and old Quintel Woods. And I was like, yo, AD,
you talking about the Quintel Woods when he didn't have a driver's license and
the
he
rookie
had the
card.
basketball card?
Yeah. And so I was like, dude, come on, AD, give me the goods. And he was like, you don't even know, like you couldn't begin to know sort of like how talented that team was and just what a mess it was. And obviously that's like an extreme example or whatever. And I'm not trying to say like 19-year-old Zebo like upset the thing, but there's more that goes into it than just like a straight talent evaluation. So that's why like the intel from teams is like an incredibly valuable aspect of this.
Yeah, definitely. I tell you a cool story. It's kind of off topic. All right. So, and I think your audience will appreciate this. So there's a guy, Mike Foster, who plays for the G League Ignite. He's a draft prospect. And so I reached out to his agent. I wanted to capture some content on him because he is a guy that put up very good numbers in the G League. And they're comparable to most guys that are projected as first round picks, but for whatever reasons, he's not getting the love. So I wanted to like do this story about, why is he under the radar? So his agent says, hey, he's working out in Memphis. He's working out with Penny Hardaway, Rasheed Wallace, and Bonzi Wells. So, the Blazers fan in me.
Exactly.
It's like, I'm going to Memphis. I'll pay my own way. I drive 6 hours, go to Memphis. And there were some rumblings that Rasheed and Penny had fell out, and that's why Rasheed wasn't on Penny's staff. So I was kind of shocked when I went to the University of Memphis campus, and the first person I see is Rasheed. Now, Rasheed Wallace and Zach Randolph are my two favorite players of all time. There you go. So, I mean, I'm a grown man, so I'm not gonna like be, like giddy over Rasheed.
Taking photos or whatever.
I introduce myself, and Rasheed is like a germaphobe in a sense. He's the only guy that's still wearing a mask. So I shake his hand. He shakes my hand. He pulls out some sanitizer, sprays his hand. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. So, because you kind of feel weird. Like, if there's somebody that, if he doesn't want to be rude and not shake my hand, I know it's kind of, everything that's going on. So anyway, I talked to him, and, Rasheed has never been a guy that did a lot of media, right? And so he's been working out Michael Foster. Didn't care for it. So he's working out this guy. And so I told the agent, I said, man, I want to get some quotes from Rasheed. You think I can do an interview? He's like, definitely. She to do it. So I'm like, Okay. So I asked Sheed, I said, hey, man, you're working out, Michael. I want to get some thoughts. Can I sit down to an interview? Nicest guy. He says, yeah, we sit down. He lets me put a mic on him. We did like a whole 10-minute interview. And, like 15-year-old Rafael was just
exactly
amazed. So then I got a chance to talk to Bonzi, and Bonzi was working out, different guards. And so one of the questions I asked Bonzi, I said, now, as a trainer, do you consider yourself, you work out the post players, or are you a guard? And he laughed and he was like, I consider myself both, because I'm like, well, when you played in the league, you did a lot of your damage in the post.
Yeah.
And one of the funny things he told me, and you can agree or disagree with it, he told me that he was Russell Westbrook before Russell Westbrook. And if he played in today's NBA, he thinks he would have played point guard. I thought that was very interesting. But to go back to it, it was, and I talked to them about the documentary, and they said that this Jailblazers documentary, it is going to come out soon. So when you talked about, talking to AD about that team, and that was one of the things, it's like, man, when is that documentary coming out? And he said it's in the works. So I'm looking forward to that.
AD was basically like, that's for a 30 for 30 or cut the check. So
yeah. And I mean,
I wasn't going to give up. Yeah.
Yeah. The stuff that I was reading, and I mean, you're talking about me. At that time, I was in my early 20s, and I had every single Blazers nationally televised game on VHS, and I watched all of those games. The only game I haven't seen is the Western Conference Finals Game 7. But
didn't keep that one?
No, I didn't watch it. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't Zebo's rookie year the year they were down 3-0?
Yeah, and they came back and won 3 straight against the Dirk and Nash Mavs, and then they lost a Game 7.
I missed that game because I'm from Nebraska and it's tornado season around that time, and we had a tornado watch during Game 7. So I missed the last quarter of that game. But you just kind of took me back when you mentioned. I forgot AD was on that team.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's come back in third segment, close out the show. I want to ask you about some second round prospects. I know you got your eyes on folks, but first I want to tell my listeners about Bet Online. It's the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action, whatever that might be. You're going to find it there with more lines, more props than ever before. NBA Finals start on Thursday. You got the NHL playoffs to look forward to. You got soccer, the MLS and MLS here in the States. You can bet on tennis tournaments. You missed out a chance to bet on the French Open, but you got more coming up. So get on it. Find what you need. Take advantage today. That's Bet Online, where the game starts. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. You're still listening to Locked on Blazers. Still chatting here with Rafael Barlowe, the director of scouting at NBA Big Board and the founder of NBA Draft Junkies, and a host of the podcast right here on this network, Locked on NBA Big Board, that you should check out because you'll get these type of insights. You might not get the Bonzi Wells story, but you'll get some good insights. Rafael, I know you got a full 60 pick mock or a second round mock on your website today. Who do you like for the Blazers? They got a 36 pick in the draft. Who do you like?
There's a couple guys that I like. So based off of my mock, I like Darian Sebron from NC State. May not be the ideal fit, but we're talking about this guy that's like 6'5", 180 pounds. He rebounds like a big. He's a one-man fast break, and he just puts tremendous pressure on the rim. And at the combine, he had the opportunity to play some point guard. I've been high on him all year. I'm from Nebraska, like I mentioned. He had like a 39.18 rebound game against my Huskers. And this is at like 180 pounds. And the big knock on him is that he can't shoot. But the Blazers, and I know this is a new front office and so on, but I feel like the Blazers have done a good job in the past at developing guys, getting guys to maximize their skill sets, whether it's second round picks or whatever. So I think with Portland, if they can get him to work on his shot, because it's not broken. It's just, he just seems like a guy that has always been able to get to the basket whenever he wanted to, and has never really put in the time to work on his jump shot. So I would like him there. Portland, for Portland. Then there's Gabriel Procida, who is from Italy. He's a really good athlete, and he's a knockdown shooter. I had a chance to watch him play in Milan. I think he could be like your 3-and-D floor spacer / guy that gets out and scores in transition. So I think that would be a good fit for Portland. And I think that Maybe there's some centers that could come in and possibly be provide some minutes at the 5, whether it's Khalifa Diop from Gran Canaria, Jalen Williams from Arkansas. I know I had mentioned the other
another Jalen Williams. Yeah.
But this Jalen Williams is a phenomenal passer and just kind of a glue guy that likes to take charges. I mean, he took a charge in 3-on-2, 2-on-1 drills at the combine. And I think like the Blazers could use another passer and ball mover guy that you can give the ball to, and he can find cutters. So I would like him there. Maybe Yannick Sosa, a guy who was a projected top 5 pick coming into this year, had just an awful season. Nobody really knows all the details behind it. He had like a mysterious injury that kind of kept him out. Very young. He's still maybe like 18 or 19 years old. And I think he's worth a shot for Portland to gamble on. But it all depends on their timeline. If they're looking for a second round pick, which is kind of weird to say, but if they're looking for a second round pick that they think can come in and contribute and steal some minutes, maybe like a Herb Jones type.
Everybody
player.
wants a Herb Jones.
Everybody wants a Herb Jones or Draymond Green or something like that. Then they may not go for somebody that is considered a project. But those are a few guys that I personally would like Portland to take a look at.
What is the separator for a guy who goes top 60 or, top, like goes in the second round versus undrafted free agent? What is it for you? What's the separator?
You know what? It's really interesting this year because I think we're going to see more situations like Austin Reeves. So I don't know if you know the backstory. Austin Reeves, and I know his agent in Austin came on my podcast. Well, his agents felt like it would be best for Austin to go undrafted. So they told teams not to draft him. So that way they could pick the best spot for him in a 2-way deal, which is like a tremendous gamble. And I mean, It's a story that they'll probably come on and tell on one of my podcasts. So he ended up getting undrafted. They thought the Lakers were the best fit because they were going to have a bunch of high salary guys and they're going to need low end guys that can come in and contribute. Well, Austin ends up getting a 2-way, which was converted into a standard contract. And then he ended up being in their rotation. So it's very risky, but I wouldn't be surprised if some agents opt to go that way, where they're saying, hey, don't draft my guy. I'd rather take a 2-way on a team where I know, all right, this team doesn't have any bigs. And my guy can go to this team on a big where I know he can get some minutes, as opposed to, like a guard getting drafted by OKC, you don't.
There's just not spots for him.
Yeah, or even like with Portland, you may see, with the 36th pick, it could be a team, an agent as a point guard. And he's like, there's no minutes there at the point with Simons and Lillard there. My guy is a ball handler. He needs the ball in his hands. So let's go to a team where they don't have any ball handlers, where they need some help there. So I think this year, to answer your question, was a long-winded answer. I think you're going to see agents try to go more so for fit as opposed to just having their player drafted.
Yeah, I mean, it's a subtle thing. Like, it wouldn't have worked out the same way in Portland with Trendon Watford, but, he goes undrafted and he's the guy who ends up clicking and getting a multi-year, contract, or at least a guaranteed year in a second season out of it. Whereas like a guy like Greg Brown, who was just a straight up second round pick, is kind of more in the developmental role. Like he's more... he ended up being a little bit not as good of a fit, but maybe more upside. And I feel like that's maybe the trade-off a little bit, is like upside guys. So they're just like, we want to lock in and we want Greg Brown under contract for a few more years, but Trendon Watford will take a 1-year flyer. And if he sticks, we'll make it a multi-year thing. I think there is increasingly, after 45, it's like, nope, I'd rather have my guy pick a spot than have to go into camp and he doesn't, and only have one shot at it.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think also, we have a few weeks, but you may see guys kind of pull out because if they're not locked to go first round, if they go to a blue blood school, there's probably more money for them in NIL deals than it is with a second round contract. So the next few weeks are going to be very, very interesting.
If people are looking for more of you, Rafael, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me at NBABigBoard.com. My second round mock is out today. Then there's the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast that I'm doing 5 days a week. And then on Twitter, you can find me at Barlowe500. So there's a lot of different ways you can.
He's out there grinding, making draft content. So find him. find him on YouTube, wherever you get podcasts, whatever you're looking for. Make Locked On NBA Big Board your second listen every day, because your first listen is going to be Locked On Blazers, coming at you 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts. Tell your friends to do the same. Make it a part of your daily routine. This is the stretch. We're about a month out, 3.5 weeks out from the draft. It's time. Hop on board. Tell your pals to do the same. Come back and listen. Appreciate you listening. Talk to you soon.